Okay, it's 9:05. Let's get started. 9:04. There you go. All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for our Gemini meeting. We're going to start, and as usual, today we usually have a presentation in the beginning of the meeting. Today, we're going to do a more internally facing presentation, but I actually think this is a pretty neat concept that we have been crafting over the years, and the more we use and the more we discuss it, the better it will turn out. So I'm going to go through this concept with the group, and I do welcome questions and suggestions because that's what we're doing this for. But the idea of this presentation is one of a series of presentations we're going to do throughout the year around some structural organization of the group, but particularly how we improve the process of research, training, development, and just overall performance in the group. So you heard us talk about this concept of the manuscript pipeline over our meetings. We always keep talking about, is this meeting number 1? Is this meeting number 2? Meeting number 3? And the reason why we are organizing this framework, it comes from several key principles. So the first key principle here is the fact that we have different levels of experience and seniority in the group in terms of research and science. And because of the size of the group and the scope of the group and one of our big Gemini values of being very inclusive to our partners and colleagues throughout the Gemini Center, it becomes very hard for the senior authors, senior mentors like me, Catherine, Emily, to review every document and be part of every decision and every meeting about a project. So we started crafting this model to improve how we as a group could continue developing the work, producing good quality work, and allowing the senior mentors to provide input at the moments that they are mostly needed for the development of the project. The idea is that this will reduce the bottleneck of students that need a meeting with a senior mentor to continue moving forward with the project. And that meeting ends up being postponed for 1, 2, 3 months because of our schedules. And it's not getting any easier with the growth of the center. Now, what it also does is that it elevates the role of the project peers. So the working together, it elevates the need for you to have different minds working together through a problem. It also elevates the role of what we are calling the intermediate mentor, which is usually a project coordinator with more experience, a postdoc, or a junior faculty, or is that the word we're using for? Early investigator faculty?
Sure, junior faculty.
Can take
Yeah.
Not very good connotation, but yeah. So a junior faculty that will be the primary point person in this process, in between these larger meetings, in between these discussions. But this is in no way an approach that will reduce the interactions you have with the senior faculty, with the senior mentors. We, as a group, have always been very open and access. You can get a meeting in our schedules at any time. The barrier for getting a meeting is time, is the lack of availability of time in our schedules. So this will allow us to continue proceeding forward. But you are going to continue having this weekly meeting as the space for you to interact with all of us, along with our Teams channels and the different communication methods we use across the group. It's a matter for you to learn how to engage better and use those methods better. So the manuscript pipeline is a framework to get us there. And the second pillar that created this manuscript pipeline has been something that Catherine and I have been developing over the past 10 years of work, which is creating structure to facilitate the learning of how to do science, how to do research. how to report research, how to conduct research, ensuring rigor, ensuring quality, but also allowing students that are joining our group from the start, very early on, to work and produce and learn faster in a high quality way by following tools that allow us to do that. So it increases our translational capacity. So I'll go through this. We've talked about this a few times, but it also is going to allow us to put some markers into this. So why do we use this model? And I think I've been talking about this before I got to this slide. I'm going to make a disclaimer that Ashley Phillips, our Director of Operations, was going to be doing this presentation, but she's not feeling well today, and I'm taking up. So I'm going to react as I go through the slides because I saw them 10 minutes ago. But they are pretty, so any kudos on the slides go to Ashley. Any problems and poorly performance comes to me. Okay. All right. So the way we use the reason why we use this, just to go through, is making sure we ensure quality. So we've been talking a lot about this, improving excellence in the documents, excellence in the work that we do, as one of the primary Gemini values is producing excellent research. The timeliness of this work, we've noticed over the past couple of years, as the center grew, the project started facing these bottlenecks and these challenges of progressing within a good time. And a lot of this comes from the lack of time from the senior mentors, but also it started to create this noise between I'm trying to schedule a meeting. The meeting is for a very simple question that could have been resolved on an email or a Teams message or in this meeting, and we're not using it properly for that. So it just created barriers to producing, and we wanted to put something around it that would allow the timeliness to continue. Also, it allows us to ensure reproducibility, because as we perform this process using the 3-meeting model, documents need to be produced so that on these meetings we are able to replicate the work, verify the work, validate the work, and these documents need to be created. And it comes from another push to improve rigor and transparency on the work. It allows us to bring diversity because it allows us to have more people, more collaborations, different minds thinking around the same problem within the model. So there's always going to be at least 3 people working on a project: a senior mentor, an intermediate mentor, and the project lead, which is usually a trainee. So it allows that interface, but it's always going to have more people. It improves the ownership so that this discussion around, we've talked about this on this meeting a lot. I'm waiting on João for an answer problem. We got to fix that problem, and that problem needs to be fixed by taking ownership on the project. So it distributes the number of mentors, it distributes the people you can engage with, and it also gives you predictability of the times you are going to be able to talk about the projects, and that gives ownership to the project lead, the person that is leading the project. And overall, it improves transparency, because then we are able to, through reproducibility, improve sharing of notes, improve the usage of Teams channel for overall communication and decision-making. So the idea you see here in the bottoms, the core idea is to save time by requesting project meetings when milestones are reached, not as just routine check-ins. So we're only going to meet when milestones are reached, and those milestones also become deadlines, and we can use that to move things forward. So usually, who is in the manuscript pipeline? The manuscript pipeline is going to always be led by a content lead and an analysis lead. We've been using this concept at Gemini for a long time. So the content lead is usually the person who is the project lead and is the person that's going to drive the research question, the manuscript and content writing, and writing the discussion of the paper. And then the analysis lead is usually the person that defines the analysis plan, executes the analysis plan, develop analytical codes, analytical briefings, results, reports, and so forth. Those 2 personas could be the same person if those skills are embedded in the same person. but usually we like to make this distinction because we have this phenotype in our group that comes from the core of Gemini between Catherine and I over the years. And then on this core concept, we always have someone with more expertise on the topic and someone with more expertise on the methods. And we end up pulling students that have different perspectives as well to fill those roles. Over the years, while I served as the analysis lead for the alcohol work that Catherine did, Catherine now serves as the implementation science lead for some of the technology work that I'm leading. And that dual approach has always been very successful in bringing rigor, innovation. So we want to continue that and teach that through this work. But then this group is who drives the work. Those are the drivers. So they share the ownership and the development of the tasks. But one of them is anointed as the project lead, and is the person who's going to be responsible for maintaining the project. Now, the first layer of communication, which you can see in this very beautiful AI image here, with this clear blue tail,
lighter blue,
teal. There's a teal elevator at Duke Hospital that I learned last week, so now I know what this color is for. Teal color, is the intermediate mentor. The intermediate mentor is usually going to be a very active mentor, someone who is on its early career status, coming to a mid-career status, that can provide mid-level correction or course of correction to this work. So this intermediate mentor is always going to be someone who has more experience with scientific writing, in research conducting, and can be that point of context for responding faster to demands. So there's some demands that are very simple. Somebody comes and say, should I use the stroke checklist or the consort checklist to build out this methodology? In the earlier ages, those would be an email that we might answer 2 weeks after that. It could be a meeting that needs to be scheduled and it avoids a month. So this could be something you could have a very close contact with that intermediate mentor, who is usually someone who is already leading that same line of research. In our use case at Gemini, those are usually going to be the project coordinators, the postdocs, or the junior faculty involved on the work. And these roles are defined early on in the project. And then on another layer of this, not as engaged in a day-to-day basis, but engaged in on the meeting schedules and on the meeting structure, are the senior mentors, which then will provide overarching strategical guidance, final methodological reviews, and gatekeeping, which I don't know what I actually wanted to do by gatekeeping, but are the ones that need to approve the process in the end. So no papers, no projects should be submitted with final approval from the senior mentor or senior mentors in the process.
So can I add 2 things?
Yes, please.
So one thing that we missed from the last slide that actually also is important here is that any of the phenotypes that Joao has described could be any of our local or global partners.
Yes.
And so all of our members of the Gemini Center are welcome to sit in almost any position that you believe that you're ready for, right? We don't want you to shield yourself away from an area, especially if you have that expertise. And we're happy to support you to be in that role. This will be developed in the beginning of the meeting number 1 that we'll talk about, and to make sure that everybody who is in the role that they're sitting in has the expertise for that. Now that leads into the second point, which is capacity building. Because capacity building is the core of who we are and why we're doing this, it is important to hold this structure because it allows people to learn how to mentor. And even though you might be one of the junior people on the team, know that the mentors, senior mentors, and intermediate mentors are talking, even if you're not there. Part of the reason why this works well is because the structure allows for multiple rapid questions at the level that they're needed. And the amount of time that is needed to each individual learner is given to the learners from those who are able to mentor. So we all have to give each other a little bit of grace in this process because everyone is learning, even the senior mentors, surprise, surprise. We all have to learn how to mentor intermediate mentors, right? And then junior mentors. So it is the foundation of capacity building that brings the structure to a front, and it works incredibly well when we have very eager learners at all levels. And so just remember, if you start to feel a frustration, start to think, why is this happening? How do I move this process along? How can I really engage with this to make this work best for the team?
Cool. All right, so here's the concept of the tree meeting structure, and we're going to go into more tactics of how it works in the next slides. But the idea then is that each meeting has a very distinct purpose and a concrete milestone for advancing the manuscript. And it also means that these are the 3 times you will get in touch with your senior mentor outside of Teams messages here and there when needed and vetted by the intermediate mentor. But
And
you will have
Gemini meetings.
and the Gemini meetings, of course, which is where we are right now. But every project should have 3 group meetings to be able to be conducted in time and in quality. The first meeting is the brainstorming meeting. And the purpose of this brainstorming meeting is to define the research question, discuss through what the analysis plan is, and have an overall definition of roles, definition of times, definition of the project as it's going to be performed. Then the milestone here is to have descriptive analysis done and to have the project structure set up so that we can come to the second meeting. The second meeting is the validity meeting, where we're going to review descriptive results and then use those to validate the research question and the analysis plan, make any adjustments that are needed based on distribution of data, availability of data, preliminary findings on descriptive analysis, and then lead to the formal analysis itself, the formal completion of the statistical analysis plan. The milestone here is analysis completed and paper skeleton completed. Then the third meeting is the meeting where we're going to do a review meeting. And in this meeting, we're going to review the final results. So we're going to review the formal analysis as it follows the statistical analysis plan, draft discussion points, and then leads to a milestone of paper being completed, fleshed out, and moved out for co-authors for revision. So what happens here is that we're going to have activities that are happening before, during the meeting, and then after the meeting. And this is the tactics that we want to talk about and have everybody follow. So before meeting 1, we want to get the project ready to be started. This first meeting, we shouldn't be spending time discovering. We should spend time on this meeting talking about the concept of the project and setting up the concept of the project for completion. So before this meeting, we are going to define, usually by email or a Teams channel or in a meeting like this or a project meeting, we're going to define who are the people and what are their roles. This will be happening before the meeting. Identify who is the senior mentor or the PI, who are the project leads, analysis leads, and who are the relevant co-authors that are involved in this project. We're going to define what are the source of materials. So data dictionaries, questionnaires, source of data that needs to be shared around. And then we're going to do some quick check-ins for feasibilities, such as, is the question feasible based on data that's available? Is there a IRB clearance that needs to go through everybody involved in IRB? Any documentation that needs to happen? All of this happens before meeting 1 is settled. These discussions are usually going to happen in the project meetings. So when you have the PRAC meeting, the PRICE meeting, the cancer meeting, those happen there. An idea is defined, setup is made, or they can happen by email as well. What needs to be ready before meeting 1 is having the question defined, the people defined, the source of data defined, and making sure that the regulatory or approval pathways are defined. Once those things are defined, then we go into the meeting, and this is the brainstorming meeting. So during the meeting, what we do is we decide the project foundation. We define authorship roles and responsibilities. We document project and we document who's involved, define the research question, discuss what are the key points and approaches for the statistical or the analysis plan overall. As a note here for the PCs, we probably need to stop talking about SAPs and talk about analysis plan as a whole, because they can be statistical, they can be qualitative, and we want to be more comprehensive. But define what the analysis plan is going to be, and then we agree on the initial paper structure. We are going to leave this meeting with the skeleton fleshed out, drafted. So the output of the meeting is having the project infrastructure in place, or the needed information to set up that project infrastructure. And then the project leads are going to create the paper skeleton, all the managing documents that we all know who they are, the folder, the documentation, the library reference, all the documents that are part of our paper writing toolkit. Define the data dictionary, define the SAP or the analysis plan, build folder and repository infrastructure, build citation literature resources. And then the next milestone before meeting 2, what we want to do is have descriptive analysis completed following this initial analysis plan. So build table 1. Initial project structure is established and shared on the Teams channel. Notes and decisions are shared using our template for note-taking and meeting notes. And tasks are assigned to project owners or task owners, and timelines are shared. So after meeting 1 and before meeting 2, what we want to see shared then is are the Google Drive and Box folders for us to keep documents of the project and data on Box. We want to have the GitLabs set up for codes. We want to have the Teams channel set up, the Kanban task list using Teams Planner, citation manager, and the literature matrix. All of these things defined in the project list. We want to have the paper skeleton and the introduction methods drafted, which should be able to do after meeting 1. We want to create the analysis plan, either statistical or qualitative. Create the table, mock tables, and begin analysis here is do table 1, is create the descriptive table. And then for documentation, we want to share meeting 1 notes and decisions on the Teams channel, and then keep that running document for notes and decisions as intermediate meetings are happening between the 2 large meetings. Also, before meeting 2, as we discussed, we want to have tables, and Ashley makes a note here that's very important. Adequate formatting is important. Discussion around missing data is important. Overall strata, columns, discussions around how things are done are very important. Documentation on this is also very important. For statistical analysis, having tables format appropriately with codes ready is very important for us to be able to have a meaningful meeting 2. For qualitative analysis, having a code book defined, having a coding tree showed, those are also very important for us to be able to have a meaningful discussion between meeting 1 and 2. So descriptive analysis and then missing analysis for qualitative are very important. And then a note here to the group and Anna in particular is that we need to add what the qualitative analysis for this is as well. So those things, until this documentation and these products are ready, we should not have meeting 2. Okay, what we are discussing is that meeting 2 should be scheduled, and then these are developed in light of meeting 2, but we can only have meeting 2 if these things are finished. During meeting 2, then the validity meeting, we're going to review and challenge what was done in meeting 1. Review initial results, discuss the analysis question based on the data, identify changes needed to the analysis plan, clarify any analytical questions or concerns that we see, revise this working set, so revise the SAP, the manuscript skeleton, analysis code, tables, templates, analyze the documentation. And then before meeting 3, we want to have the formal analysis done, so the analysis plan completed, results drafted and completed, meeting 2 notes, decisions shared, and task assigned as well. Between meeting 2 and meeting 3, we want to finalize analysis, so complete and agree with the SAP results, complete manuscript section, so update the introduction based on any revision that is done on meeting 2, update the methods based on any revision that is done on meeting 2, and complete the results based on the proposed analysis plan. Finalize the reproducibility assets, so share analytical codes so we can have the peer review of codes, share documentation on GitHub, on GitLabs, and or share in vivo files depending on the analysis plan. And then prepare the discussion. So before meeting 3, the group will then bring the discussion points that they have initially conceptualized so that in the meeting we can talk them through and have this formalized. For that, you're going to follow the discussion template that we have discussed extensively using our 3 discussion point framework as well. By meeting 3, we're going then on the meeting 3 review, do the final scientific review, review final results, discuss and refine these discussion points, identify if any SAP additional analyses are needed. It shouldn't, but this is a good point for doing that, and complete manuscript. Before, what happens and decides on the meeting forward is, do we need another meeting 3? Do we need another meeting based on what the results are looking like? Is this completed? Are we moving towards submission? Which journal? Who is going to be doing any additional revisions before submission? And who are the co-authors and timelines that are needed for revisions to happen? And then finally, output is paper moves for co-author revision. We begin submission process. We share meeting notes and we track tasks and share task ownerships. After meeting 3, then we go into our pre-submission checklist. We follow our submission checklist and making sure that we have all the items in the checklist that are summarized here. So full draft of the paper, manuscript formatted for submission, references formatted, EndNote or library file archived, analytical codes archived, data archived, figures archived, so that we have all the documentation. IRB and local publication approvals are obtained or requested. Methodological lead has approved submission. Senior author has approved submission. And then this paper goes for all additional co-authors for final revisions.
Can I add something? So
Yes.
the question is, do you want it before meeting 3 or after? But we've been doing a second set of eyes on all the analysis. So should that be before meeting 3 or before we submit?
I think it should be before we submit. Yeah, because we go through revisions. We go through the codes are vetted during the meetings as well as needed. In the end, we just have an additional person making sure it's there for reproducibility and consistency.
So then we can add that under approvals.
Yes, yes. Okay. So, and as this slide is saying, the meeting is only one part of the process. There's a lot that's going on in the background of this, and the more we adhere to this, the better we can flow as a group. So key priority here are, let's use Teams and the Teams channel for the project to ask questions, to make notes, to discuss and share notes. One thing that is very important to highlight is once we have a meeting and things are discussed, we need to share notes so that everybody is aware. That improves transparency, but it also improves communication and improves our ability to provide ownership for what is the word for accountability on the work as well. So this is very important to share notes, timelines associated with notes. In between these 3 meetings, you are going to have chats between your colleagues, between your peers, between you and the intermediate mentor, those meetings and those discussions, as they lead to new decision items or timelines, also share those notes. The senior authors will be monitoring those to see, but it also, again, provides transparency, provides accountability and ownership. So those things need to be as open, as transparent as possible. We do that as well by using our Kanban file, so using Planner on Teams. Every project needs to have its own attached planner, the planner with the tasks and the tasks with milestones and who's leading the tasks. It allows us to monitor and discuss the work. Using GitHub to share codes and reproducibility. For those that are on the statistical analysis side, this is extremely important, but also for qualitative work, if we're going to use NVivo on another software, having those shared as well is very important. And then follow Drive and Box for documentation. We choose to use Google Drive instead of Box for all the work we do at Gemini, because it allows us to share better with our community outside of Duke. But it's important to remind that sensitive data should not be added on Drive. So we keep this usage of Box for it, which is our appropriate approved way of storing and sharing data on our work. All of this is allowing us then to use the manuscript checklist, which gives us a centralized single document for maintaining documentation and management of the process as we go. So this is our structure. What happens between meeting 1 and meeting 2 between the working teams, it's for the work team to figure out if you're going to have interim check-ins over a week, if you're going to discuss it on Teams channels or messages, it's for the group to define, but those products need to be complete before they come to the discussion. And it goes with the concept that everything that is produced and brought to the meetings has to be validated by the intermediate faculty or the intermediate mentor. So if descriptive tables are built before the meeting schedules and those are shown to the senior mentors, they have to be reviewed and approved by the intermediate faculty or the intermediate mentor. That's how we can assure that there is revisions happening in between and things are going to come in a better quality and better excellence to the decision-making meetings. The last thing I want to show before we move to more conversation on this is what we are currently working on as our manuscript checklist. So similar to how we manage grants, we created this manuscript here in the center that is structured around the meetings. So whenever we start a project, and this is going to be a topic for discussion on meeting 1, we define what is the target submission date for that project, for that paper, and that creates the timeline for the meetings to happen. And then here we have a checklist with all the activities that are needed in those interim moments. So before meeting 1, what needs to be produced, focus of the meeting, what we're going to discuss on the meeting, then what needs to be produced before meeting 2, focus for the meeting on meeting 2, required for meeting 3, focus, and then the pre-submission, and then post-submission or revision stage. What we are doing now is that we are adding all of our templates here to the links that shows examples on how we've organized all of these pieces of the work. Some of them don't have anything because they are the same as others, but we're going to continue filling this up so that every line has its associated template or guidance or SOP for you all to follow. And this is what our managing document for each project is. Now, this works extremely well for grants and grant management. And our group, the Gemini Center, has created a process to submit grants that makes complex submissions like NIH or other federal funding very smooth. And we're trying to push the same methodology to manuscript writing. And this is what we call these are the translational tools that allows us to get a master student that is just starting their master's, an undergrad that starts to work with us, being able to discuss things on a very high quality and standards level, because there's documentation, guidance, videos to support most of, if not all of these tasks here. And the seasonal documentation or the seasonal structure events that we run at Gemini are to build the documents that are going to be here. This is open for the community to use. You can get access to this through our Google Drive or through our project coordinators as well. But we want to continue in following this process more consistently as we build projects. I'm going to stop there.
Yeah, I'm gonna add the only way that this works is if we use it.
Yes.
So we need your help, everyone's help to know where it is, to share it with each other, to make sure that we use it. And then if you see that it's missing something or something would make it better, just let us know and we will be happy to update it or integrate.
Cool. All right. Comments, questions, thoughts? I'm not seeing if there's anything on.
I have a question about
Yes.
the checklist. What is the difference between the checklist and the task planner?
That's a good point. I think at some point when we use the checklist well enough, we might not need the planner.
Yeah, because I think the checklist is easier to use
Yeah.
and to create.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. We might not need to have, if we're able to embed the checklist on the Teams channel, as a tab or something, I think it could substitute the planner. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was pushing us to use the planner as a group so that it would be easier to distribute tasks, but I don't think everybody uses it, so that's fine.
Yeah.
You can probably choose what the team wants to use. Like if they'd prefer to use Teams so that we can distribute tasks, if for
Yeah.
those of us who use Teams that way,
Mhm.
we can do that. Or if you'd prefer to do it this way, it's fine to me.
Cool. Other thoughts or questions?
I was thinking about the target submission date. What would you say? Like, if we were starting today one project or preparing this, what would be a good?
Great answer is that it depends, right? It depends on if you have a very motivated team. It depends if you have a financial deadline. It depends if you have the data. Like if you don't have the data yet, you can't really say when it's gonna be.
Okay.
Part of those initial goal dates are really just gonna depend upon all of those components. So for right now, since we're winding down Pract, I want everything submitted by December 1st. And so I would put December 1st in there and push towards that deadline. And if you miss it, it's okay. But at least it gets you starting to think
Yeah.
about a deadline. Because if you don't put anything in there, then
It makes sense to have a target. So I was just asking.
Yeah, I don't think we have a clear line of sight for it. It also depends on the complexity of the analysis and
Yep.
yeah. Those are defined at the project start. It sounds very rigid, but it's not about being rigid as much as it's around putting structure around the process. So this is trying to mirror what usually happens where we are sitting at a meeting and thinking about, well, this is a great paper to have, or whenever we're starting up our grants, so we just got a new grant, price is going, and you're gonna see on the price check-in, there's 3 outputs for price. So we already know what the outputs are, and then on that price meeting where we're defining what the outputs are, you can put a proposed timeline, and then that would start this process. And then we can continue this process. It doesn't mean that a project will be done in 3 weeks. Could, but this can go on longer, but it just gives us this monitoring documentation, this structure around the process. And the other thing that happens a lot we're trying to solve is that several times when new students are joining the group and we say, well, start a paper skeleton. And say, where do I go to get that? Well, they come here. And here, when they're defining defined paper skeleton, then it should have, which is not here yet, a template or an SOP that explains how. So the trainee can read, learn on their own, and then they go to the project coordinator and ask more direct questions instead of asking, how should I do this? This is supposed to avoid that process. And I'm going to put it out there, but hopefully by the end of December, we're going to have this turned into an LLM AI. That's something João Victor and I have been talking a lot about, and it should be pretty straightforward to do. So we're proposing to get some time in December to block us off of meetings to be able to build that out. But we're going to discuss that more, which would make it even smoother. But yeah, that's the idea. So when you come here and you're going to start following this process, what we want people to see is, I want to define what the authors and responsibilities are. Here's a document explaining that. We're not just going to ask people to go lead ICGMR, I don't know, that place that everybody goes to.
I see.
Here's what we're suggesting that is a little bit more tailored to what our use case for this is. And then create the Google folder. Here's a place where you can copy a templatized Google folder with all the information. And same thing for Box and for other things. And then there's naming conventions. How should I name it? Here's how you should name it. Here's our additional tips or videos that we've had in this conversation. We're probably going to have here somewhere a video explaining what the 3-meeting structure is when we start this, because we're saving this conversation. But as Catherine said, the more we use, the questions people are going to ask as they are trying to use it will push us to improve and to change and adapt. And I think that's why it's important. Okay.
Very good.
All right, cool. Any questions online? All right, great. So the task out of this presentation is that if you are leading a project and you do not have a checklist in your project, you should do it. That's your next step. And as you are doing it, you are going to find what are the things that you have not done, have not completed, and we'll put structure on the work that has been done in the past. And then we're going to follow this structure